The Trump campaign and his super PAC supporting his candidacy are touting massive fundraising hauls since Thursday's guilty verdict. The super PAC MAGA Inc. says they've raised $70 million in May. They are planning to spend $100 million on an ad blitz that runs through Labor Day. Let's bring in our political panel, Jasmine Wright and Stephanie Lai. Jasmine is a politics reporter at NOTUS, a nonprofit newsroom here in Washington. Stephanie is a national politics reporter at Bloomberg. So great to have both of you here. I know we could linger on 50 Cent's visit to Capitol Hill, but let's move on to the campaign. Jasmine, we'll begin with you. A lot of money coming in for the Trump campaign, but to what end? Yeah.
I mean, I think it's significant for a couple of reasons, but mostly because throughout this campaign, there's been a narrative that former President Trump, his campaign, the RNC, just weren't raising enough money to chip away at the major cash haul that President Biden and his joint venture with the DNC have been able to raise. And so that $141 million in May, of course, we still have to wait until the FECs verify that number. And of course, $53 million just 24 hours after the verdict is going to be helpful in making sure that they can fund what they need to fund, pay for who they need to pay, and really try to get their message out, particularly when we're talking about communities that Nicole was talking about, African-American communities, something that this campaign has said that they're continuously trying to reach out to, but we haven't really seen much on that front. The same with Latinos. The question, though, I think going forward is how much is going to be directed to former President Trump's legal issues. That's something that Laura Trump with the RNC was asked a couple of days ago. She hasn't been able to say. So how is that money going to be divided up? I think that's something that we'll have to wait and see. But it is helpful when trying to combat the Democrats and all the money that they've been able to raise.
Stephanie, when you talk to your sources in the Democratic Party and the Republican Party about the fallout from the guilty verdict in the last few days, what are you hearing? What have you learned?
I mean, I think we were expecting this for quite some time. A lot of Trump's allies had said weeks in advance, if it's a guilty verdict, they're going to make a ton of money. There's going to be a lot of outrage. And I think we saw that with these latest fundraising announcements. The MAGA Inc. memo that they released, I guess the internal memo that we received, basically stated that a lot of people were donating to the campaign, to the super PAC, because of precisely this reason. And I think what's notable from the campaign side is that they said that in the month of May, the majority of their donations were roughly $70. It's coming from the average American. It's coming from voters who are upset with what they saw play out.
What are you both watching, and we'll start with you, Jasmine, on the vice presidential search for Trump? I've heard North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum, Senator Marco Rubio, Senator J.D. Vance, Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina. Is that the short list, or are there more names out there, and are there variables in the discussion?
I mean, I think that it's yes to both of those options, right? Yes, that is the core group. That's who we hear about the most. That's who we see on not just Republican-favored TV programs on Sunday shows, but also ones that are a bit more defensive of the Republican platform. But as I talk to the Trump campaign and folks there, they consistently say that until Donald J. Trump says who his VP contender is, nobody knows who it is. So I expect that they're going to cast a wide net, talk to a lot of people, ask people for various forms as it gets closer to July, when the RNC is, when Trump has said that he will name his nominee. I think that there are a lot of different issues under consideration, but most importantly, I think is going to be not just the personality of the person, but who can stand beside Trump, not overshadowing him, but really complimenting him. I think that that is what this campaign is really looking for.
What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think to add to that, one thing that we've been tracking for quite some time is that loyalty is a huge issue for the president. They're not looking for someone who's going to not see through with this agenda, and that seems to be the biggest point that they're looking for right now. Earlier there was a lot of reporting that he was looking for someone who might help him win certain electorates or certain voter blocks. But that doesn't seem to be super necessary this cycle because he just has so much name ID and because he's already polling pretty well or significantly better than in the past with a lot of these key groups like, the Latino vote, the Asian American vote, the Black vote. So it seems like, in terms of picking a VP, it doesn't necessarily need to fit the boxes that we used to think it would have to fit.
And this is a summer where the convention's going to be a big thing. The sentencing is also going to be a major moment before the conventions in July. When you're talking to voters and to strategists as well, do former President Trump's legal challenges factor in a major way? Is this a seismic moment, or is it just something that's kind of already baked into the conversation for most voters because Trump's conduct's obviously been an issue for nearly a decade since he came down that escalator?
I mean, I think it's absolutely a seismic moment just because we haven't seen it before. And I know that tons of polls were asking voters whether or not they would change their mind or whether or not Trump would be eliminated if he was convicted. And I just don't think that we've necessarily seen the results of those polls just because it happened so quickly. So I think it's absolutely seismic.
Certainly. I mean, I think a lot of voters actually haven't been thinking about this or following the hush money trial as closely as some Democratic operatives might have thought they would. I think some polling had shown maybe about 50 to 60 people aren't paying any attention. So there is a chance that this actually doesn't have the impact that we thought it might.
Jasmine Wright, Stephanie Lai, we hope you both come back. Thanks so much for the conversation. We appreciate it.